Hello. Good morning, everyone.
Good
Morning.
Good morning, everyone that are with us over the internet. It's also nice to have all you here this Sunday. It's a beautiful Sunday outside. Temperature not bad for a fall. So let's enjoy because we know what's coming very soon. And today we're here for another lecture. We're going to have a lecture by our friend Isabella. We're going to be talking about trials of riches and poverty, which is very interesting because I just read something about that yesterday. But before we start our lecture, as always, we're going to have our initial reading by our friend Raquel and our initial prayer with our friend Leo.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So we're gonna read the book Happy Life by Givaldo. Constantly search for your real identity. That is, discover the good in you. You will note that you are neither better nor worse than others. What counts is what you do. With this awareness, you realize that you have no right to privilege, nor are you abandoned by the divinity. Everything that happens to you becomes a profitable lesson for you, for your spiritual good, since that is what you are on earth for. Gather all your accomplishments and turn them into lessons of wisdom, which will enrich you with blessings.
Morning. Dear God, thank you for having us here. Open our minds and hearts to receive the blessings, the knowledge, and the friendship that we have around us today. Guide Isabella through the lecture and help her to give us some views of what we need to learn. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
It's exciting to be here. This is an interesting topic, as we see the trials of riches and poverty. And this is a textbook image of what's inequality, and this is in Brazil, and it's very clear, like the differences, and makes one question why some people have pools on their balconies, and why others live in a constant state of need and awful situations. It could happen as well. So this is the spiritual view of the riches and poverty and why that happens. What's the struggle with this? Is it on? It's a good question. Yeah, it's on. Okay, perfect.
Go back one.
Oh yeah, perfect. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so there is this a very known parable of there was a young rich guy that was following Jesus at the time, and he was a dutiful person. He was a good citizen. He wanted to take the next step, and he had a lot of resources. So he came to Jesus and said, I'm here. I want to take the next step. What should I do? Like I'm committed. So Jesus said, get rid of all you have and follow me. And we know how this parable ends. So this young man wasn't capable of doing it, not because he was bad, but he not at all. Like it's a challenging task from Jesus, but he wasn't able. He wasn't detached enough from to do this. He had still a lot of resources, so when he wasn't able to detach and do this as a self-sacrifice. So we always listen to this parable and we always think about that's such a pity. Like he had such a good opportunity to do something amazing, and he had Jesus in front of him, and it's disappointing when we hear this parable. But every time, but how many times we had chances to do something similar to help others and we didn't do? Because there's always the judgment. Oh, this guy, like he was too attached to his riches, like he wasn't good enough or like he couldn't do it. But like every day we have a chance to do something. Every day we get this opportunity, and sometimes we don't do it. Most of the times we don't do it. So it's just not about the judgment, but about like self-reflecting, because we have the chance to do something every day. According to the Gospel according to Spiritism, wealth is a very slippery trial, more dangerous than poverty because of its allure, temptatious, and it creates the fascination it exerts. With pride, selfishness, and lust, one can become insensitive, selfish, and vain. So first time I was reading the Spiritist books and the Gospel according to Spiritism, and I got this part that says that wealth it's more dangerous than poverty. I was like, is it really? Because that doesn't look like it, right? Is it? How come like wealth be harder in that view than poverty? So I'm here trying to. I'll try to explain better why wealth it's very challenging. So first, have you ever thought, what if you were a billionaire son or daughter? What if you were inherit a lot of money? What do you do with that money? Would you work? Because you don't have to work. Like, what do you do with your day? Like, how are you gonna spend your time? Would you help others? Because most of the times it's not what you're gonna be seeing every day. You're not gonna be in contact with people in need. So that's the challenge. If you have a lot, you have a lot of resources, you have a lot of opportunities, and how are you gonna take this opportunity to do something for good? And would you help people? Like, how much would you help people if you had a lot? It's challenge because we don't know. We might be another person because would have another upbringing, other maybe experiences, other values. It would be completely different. Would you help people expecting nothing in return? Not even a tax deduction on the help and all the donations you're gonna do. So this is very challenging. And if you could pursue anything you want, you have all the resources in the world. What would you do with that? You can purchase anything, you can buy anything, you can purchase power. What do you do with that? You can buy impunity, knowing like nothing's gonna happen to you if you do something. Like, what are you gonna do with that? You can use violence, coercion, and not knowing that nothing's going to happen to you, because most of the times that's the situation. And I was researching at this, and I got to the psychology of wealth and materialism. So it's not to say that every rich person is like that, and I don't want to say that, of course, but it's just like how could influence someone, and what are the consequences of that. So it's researched that a lot of researchers says that it's higher your income, there is some lack of empathy, and that's proven scientifically, and that makes sense because you don't get to experience that's to people in need, and you don't get to develop that relationship, and you don't know how it feels. So when you don't know how the other people suffering feels because you haven't been through it, it's a bit harder to develop the empathy. So that's what happens. And I think the hardest trial it will be extreme wealth, because it isolates people from participating in humanity, because all their life, all the interactions that they have is completely different from a regular average person. Think about royal families versus working class. Like, it's day and night. Think about the billionaires, like how they interact and how are they raised, and all of that. But the problem here is that we still have a human primate brain. So this means we seek novelty. So our brains are wired to always be seeking novelty. And in our everyday lives, we want something. Most of the times we have to save a little bit to get that, and we create that expectation, and it's exciting for us, and we eventually get there. But if you have all the resources in the world, you can have anything at any time, then it becomes a problem, because you can develop tolerance for those novelty things that you feel excited for. And that's where materialism comes in, because it's very common in extreme wealth, or even just like intermediate wealth, to basically seek possessions in general. And they could even obtain those things through coercion, power, and money. instead of focusing on the spiritual needs. So this is where they buy extreme, like $500,000 purse, because it's common in the environment they are, like this kind of things. So it becomes a bit too extreme. But getting to extremes, it's really awful, because it reduces the needs to be in community, to the extremes of wealth. Because once you are in that environment, you're completely isolated. So it reduces the needs to be in community, to be cared, to recognize ourselves in relations to one another. And so back to the seeking novelty brain that we have. So some people turn to the extremes in terms of materialism, in terms of experiences, and that's it's awful, because they have pretty much legal immunity, so they can do whatever they want, and they are always looking for that. So in that case, what are the degrees they have to go to get the same dopamine and serotonin that we would feel like in a regular day when we get something that we have really worked hard to get, versus they can have access to anything. So that's the issue. So in some cases with the extreme wealth, it leaves a set of people with a lot of resources left to their own devices to figure out how to entertain themselves without any empathy, any boundaries, full legal immunity, and where sometimes coercion and violence are even common. So this is some of the examples that we see on the news nowadays. The people that didn't have any boundaries, any values, and they had all the resources that they wanted. So it's the problem with this, the lack of empathy, becoming harder and harder to see regular people as humans at all. And as I was thinking about it, I was thinking, what are the professions that require the most empathy? I was thinking social workers, nurses, teachers, and I was thinking, I never saw any like the sons of a billionaire or somebody with extreme wealth coming out and saying like, I'm going to be a social worker, I'm going to help others, I'm going to be a teacher, public school. So it's really the professions that we have seen that requires a lot of empathy. It's usually from people that have seen the consequences of the social situation, and they want to change, they want to do something because they have been there, they have suffered, and now they want to help other people. And that's the situation that with extreme wealth like this, they don't get exposed to, it's really hard for them to see themselves in others. So back to the gospel according to Spiritism. So this is some of the questions that are really interesting. Why are all humans not equally wealthy? They're not equally intelligent, active, and industrious enough to acquire wealth, or moderate and foresightful enough to preserve it. So wealth is a means of testing them morally, but since it's simultaneously powerful means of inducing progress. So it's a tool that we might be able to use it if we have it, but where wealth is always testing us morally every day. But we can help others. There's so much we can do with it. But think about not only wealth, but anything that is extraordinary, is a gift or ability. It could be extraordinary intellect, somebody that is extremely smart. It's a tool, they were given this gift, and how they're going to use it. Or like fame, for example, if they were born like already famous, how are they going to use it? Or maybe it could be something else like charisma, or anything that it's extraordinary, and they were given in this incarnation, but it's next incarnation we could not have it. So that's the idea. So God does not wish for its wealth to remain unproductive for long, thus it moves around incessantly. So each individual possesses in turn. So think about it like musical chairs. One day you might have wealth, the other incarnation might not. It always depends on the lessons that you have to learn in that incarnation. So that's why we always talk. You cannot. You have to detach yourself from everything material that you have, because the other incarnation you might not have it. The next incarnation could be a trial in poverty, and what you're gonna learn in that trial. the one who does not possess today has either had it already or will have it in the future. And the one who possesses it now might not have it tomorrow. So it's always gonna keep turning, and we will all experience poverty and wealth. So poverty is the test of patience and resignation. So the suffering, the resignation, the chance to help others. And wealth is for others is a test of charity and self-denial. So both are in the extremes, they're extremely hard. But according to the gospel, wealth is harder than poverty. So riches per se, like the wealth, is not to blame, but the human beings who abuse it, abuse them as they do all God's gifts. So any tool, any ability, any gift that we have from God, it's about how we use them. It's up to humans to use wealth for moral and intellectual progress. We may be rich or poor in past lives. The result of this experience can be observed in how we relate to the material possessions today. So just a quick example would be if somebody is a victim of scams, financial scams, like constantly, maybe that person in another life was doing that, promoting those scams in personal benefit. If somebody is very attached to material wealth, there's something else there, like to think about how you relate to the money, to the wealth you have, and is this healthy? Are you helping people? Are you using for your family, for the needs? Or is it maybe just a power of something about pride and your ego, and if you feel there is something to prove? The sources of the evil resides in selfishness and pride. Abuses of every kind will cease by themselves when humankind rules itself according to the law of charity. So selfishness and pride are the roots are pretty much all the bad things that we do. So a bit about the empathy gap that I talked about. So did some research, and that's really interesting because I was trying to understand how wealth could change somebody's brain, and that's actually proven scientifically. So and not to say again that every rich person has no empathy. It's not about it, but it's how it wires people a bit differently. So wealthier individuals may have lower levels of empathy compared to those with lower socioeconomic backgrounds. So this is a study by the University of California. Individuals from lower classes were more likely to behave generously and give to others, even when their own resources were scarce. So this is very interesting to see, not surprising. But if you have been in a situation and that was really hard and you overcome it, when you see somebody in that situation, it's normal to try to help them because you know how to help them. We have been there, you know how it feels, so you want to lift them up. And that's what happens in the lower socioeconomic classes. And why we see this empathy gap, there are many explanations. It could be self-sufficiency because they already have a lot of independence. They don't need to rely as much on others for help or emotional support. Psychological distance. So they feel, people with wealth might feel psychologically distant from those in less fortunate circumstances, leading to reduced ability to relate to their struggle. And focus on self. Wealth can sometimes promote a greater focus on individual goals and personal success rather than on collective well-being or communal support. So we're they are kind of more focused on the personal goals than the other lower class communities. And other interesting facts, some other research that I found. So drivers of more expensive cars are least likely to stop for crossing pedestrian. Also not surprising. So if you have so sometimes a Ferrari is not going to stop for you, just so you know, expect it. And another one that I found that's really interesting, a study found that the more expensive the wedding is, the shorter your marriage is likely to last. So the one that was shocking. So one of the reasons is the expensive wedding could cause financial stress in early in the marriage, leading to tension in the relationship. And the money is one of the top reasons for divorce. So that's the cause and the correlation here. And I was thinking about this, and my wedding cost me close to nothing, and I've been married for 11 years. So it's amazing. So this is, guys, I believe in this research.
You did the research, right?
I was told.
It was based on the personal.
Exactly, it was only 1%.
Yeah, one couple.
Yeah, so it's interesting to think all about that. And a great parable as well from the book Jesus in the Home. So it's when Jesus were with talking to a lot of people, and somebody asked, Lord, who is the greatest servant of the Father among all men on earth? So he tells this story about there was a community, and the community was in need of many things. And then one day a warrior came up. So this warrior was trying to help the community. So he came with all the resources that he had, because all the people coming to this community, they had some kind of a extraordinary gift or some kind of wealth in that sense. So the first one was the warrior. So the warrior arrived with swords and medals, and he was giving lessons on military tactics, teaching people how to fight, the art of defense. So people was like working on this exercise, very physical training for a potential war. But they were doing this, and they haven't seen many benefits. And despite doing all this work, they're losing many young people to this preparatory activities for a potential war. And eventually, he just left. And then a politician arrived. So a politician arrived to the same region carrying heavy loads of legal codes and divided the crowd into various parties, setting the young against the old, the poor households against the rich, the servants against the stewards, and created a lot of debates, so a lot of complications. But eventually the politician left and moved on, leaving dark thicks of hatred, disillusionment, and discord amongst the followers. And then a philosopher arrived. So the philosopher carrying a lot of books, dividing the people into various schools of beliefs. Soon he propagated fruitless discussions in every circle. The crowd began to doubt everything, even their own existence. The philosopher left behind many useless questions in the minds of the less equipped for the effort of personal growth. Another day, a priest came to the same region. So the priests are adorned with robes and symbols, provide many rules for worshiping the Father. The people learned to kneel, to cleanse themselves, to pray in the divine protection. But yet, all the problems of the community continued unchanged. But one day, a simple man appeared. He had nothing, no tools, no swords, no books, nothing. He just trying to understand what really the community needs, and he wanted to be part of the community and to help. So he carried no weapons, no scriptures, no arguments, nor images, but just a smile and a heart full of goodwill, trying to understand what are the issues of the community and trying to help with he willing. He did not preach spectacular doctrines, but just his gestures of pure and constant kindness were enough to help the community. So he helped worship. So he was cultivating a small part in the field, adorning with flowers. He was helping in the construction of a small school, and he was just being very friendly and trying to help others in need. So he improved the wood, planted beneficial trees, built houses, set up a modern school, and soon around him, health and peace thrived, as did fraternity and the blessing of service, prosperity, and the joy of living. With the spirit of work and education that he spread, defense became sound, politics helpful, philosophy valuable, and the priesthood useful. For all the actions in the field were now guided by holy imperative of fulfilling one's personal duty for all the good. So this is the idea, and at the end, Jesus mentioned it. Truly, there are many workers in the world who deserve heaven's blessings for the good they provide to bodies and minds of creatures. But the one who educates their eternal spirits, teaching and serving, stands above all. So in this parable, all of them had some kind of wealth, military, intellectual, some even like spiritual, kind of a bit of the more of the traditional sense. But it's really the heart, the willingness to help, understanding people's problems, and not just forcing a solution just because you know how to do it something specifically. But it's the heart and the willingness to help. Another interesting parables. So there was a really wealthy man in the times of Jesus, and he already had he was growing some grains, and he had already some animals, and at his time he was considered wealthy. So he was thinking, tomorrow I'll build another barn, because he already had a barn full of grains, and some people were starving, but he already had a barn with grains, and he thought, tomorrow I'll build another barn because I need to fill it. And God, according to the Bible, said, fool, tomorrow you'll no longer be on this earth. So it's really about, is it really worth to accumulate the wealth if we're not sharing? Because we could go tomorrow, we don't know what's going to happen. So it's about doing the good today. So the value of the material things in the world only translates into spiritual value when used for the benefit of others. And that's the idea. Another very common phrase, you cannot serve both God and mammon. So in this case, mammon could be the valuables, the riches, the materialism. So you cannot be both serve God and at the same time be materialist. So to be of service, to be an instrument, if you want to be the instrument of the divine within your capacity, I cannot serve material gain at the same time. Wealth, or the lack of it, is an instrument in the greater service of manifesting God, of learning solidarity and compassion. Another piece of research that it's very interesting. Does money equal happiness? And there's a lot of research on that. So I wanted to bring something that I found here. So there was a research a long time ago saying after $75,000, you don't feel any happier, and that was debunked some later on. But actually, more income is correlated, not caused, may not cause happiness. So more money, more income is correlated with happiness, but it may not cause happiness. It could be even the other way around, that happier people earn more. So this is something to think about it. However, do not put too much emphasis on money when seeking happiness, because just the money on its own doesn't guarantee greater happiness. So the correlation with money and happiness is slight. So it's not a huge correlation. It's not because you're gonna get maybe $10,000 a year more, you're gonna feel, oh my God, something changed. But it all depends on what are your baseline and how much that increase it's gonna be. Even if you double your salary, you're not going to double your happiness. So this is clear. And as your income increases, there is a diminishing influence on happiness. So after a certain point, after you get all your needs or your ends meet, and you can of course pay for shelter, pay for food, pay for all your basic needs. After a certain point, you see the diminishing effects of the wealth. So that promotion that you so much think about it, and the money that you might get, it might be maybe almost no change at all in your happiness. Happiness and satisfaction are determined by many factors, such as your genetics, your health, your quality of relationships, leisure time, purpose and meaning, how satisfied you are with your job, and so on. So just the money itself is not gonna change if you don't have the basics, which is some of those factors that influence it more. There is also this money and happiness paradox that seeking more money reduces your sense of life satisfaction and impairs your happiness. So if you're seeking money a lot, you're always going to feel dissatisfied. And I see a lot of on the internet, a lot of younger people saying like how to get $1 million before you're 25 or before you're 30. So you're setting up for failure, you're setting up to be dissatisfied. Even if you get a lot of money, if you not reach your goal, you always feel like a failure. So be very careful when you put those financial goals. Of course, it's good to be organized financially and know what you want, but if you put too much emphasis on the money, you're gonna get this effect that you feel unhappy and unfulfilled just because you didn't reach a number, but it's in reality it doesn't mean that much. So money boosts happiness when it's a result, not when it's a primary goal. So that's very interesting. Another ways of boosting happiness with money. Number one, just other pieces of research. So buy experiences rather than things, so you get more happiness when you experience something new or you travel versus like buying a new TV. So that's proven, especially when you have other people involved. So buying an experience for your family, for your friends, for your loved ones, rather than just buying something that it's once you get used to it, you feel no happiness. Spending money on other people. So some research says that you have a lot more satisfaction when you spend money on other people, and that's amazing. Spend money on smaller pleasures versus big ticket items. So small things that you can do, like a lunch here and there, a coffee, versus something huge that it might take a lot of your money. And use money to buy time. So this is another one that you can your time that can be spent with your family, with your friends, with your kids, instead of doing, I don't know, maybe cleaning or gardening that you have to do. So just some pieces of research that it might help us thinking about wealth and how can I be a better person, but also how can I feel good in the inside as well. So this is a question that I always think about. So when it discarnates, what have I brought from Earth? So the value of possessions and titles would not be counted, but rather the sum of your virtues. In this respect, the laborer may be richer than the prince. So we don't take anything material. We just take our virtues, our experience, how we helped people, how we helped our family, and nothing of any value. Even some personal accomplishments, if we are not helping others, they don't mean much. Whether one is a laborer or a prince, a servant or a judge, we all have the exact same value in life. We need to comprehend this, for only then we will treat everyone equally. So we all have the same value, and the wealth doesn't mean we are more valuable than others. We have lived before and we will live again. So in this incarnation, we have a certain level of wealth, and in the other incarnation, we might be in poverty because we have to learn something from that experience, and the other incarnation, we might be even harder. We might be in extreme wealth, which is the hardest one. So we never know, so that's why we have to treat everyone equally. We will have future incarnations, and if we're faced with the test of wealth, we should hope for enough maturity not to lose ourselves in it and to use it wisely for the benefit of many. You can also reflect on the possibility of being called to experience the test of extreme poverty. Perhaps then we will be able to have more empathy for those who face that challenge today, a challenge that for us may be too heavy to bear today. So sometimes we're not called to extreme poverty because today we might not have the resources for that challenge. So maybe next life we could have something different. Divine wealth must be put in the service of others. So fortune is not just material wealth, but also the intelligence we possess, the knowledge that we have already acquired. The wealth of intelligence should serve just as gold does, by being shared. Spread the treasures of knowledge around you, share the treasures of your love with your brothers, and they will bear fruit. So, as in wealth, we mean anything, any abilities, or any extraordinary gifts that we got in this reincarnation that should be shared. None of us is too poor for charity in the sense of just helping others. For often the greatest good we can do is found in a smile, in the empathy we extend to others. And the true detachment, the detachment is not simply giving away everything we have. So it's not just giving away everything and you don't have anything else. But knowing how to share wisely with true selflessness. It means not despairing when we lack resources and using other talents to practice charity. Detachment is trusting God, centering our actions and convictions on your spiritual nature. We can make a difference not only by sharing material goods, but above all by sharing who we are and being open to truly giving ourselves to others. So this is the detachment that Jesus talked about in the parable. So it's not only giving all your money away or your resources, but it's how I can share with others. Like if you're really good in something, like how you can spread your knowledge, or if you have material resources as well. And that's the lesson. Appreciate it. Any questions, comments, anything that surprised you?
Yesterday I was just reading a book, No Roteiro com Jesus. It's not translated to English. It's exactly talking about that. And each chapter is a one story. And that chapter is exactly talking about this guy who goes to Jesus and says, "Oh, give me this wealth, because then I'll do your service, right? I'll serve you." And then Jesus goes and gives him all as well. And then, of course, he doesn't do well with wealth and everything, and then it becomes a disaster. So he goes to Jesus and says, no, just give me power, like I'm being in command of something, and I know I'll serve you. And then he goes, fine. And then puts him in a point now, he's commanding all those people, like there's a lot of people under him. And of course, he's not prepared for it. So it's a disaster. And soon the people who's under him starts to hate him and this, and it doesn't go well. So then he goes to Jesus, and he gets to one point, he says, okay, I want to be, don't give me anything. I want to be poor. I don't want to have anything. And just like, no problem. So he loses everything. He loses his house, his land, he loses everything. He goes to extreme poverty. But then he starts to have to go to the trials of being on the streets and being pushed around, and people don't help, and starving and sick. And then finally he really understands. And then he goes to Jesus and saying, I just want to do whatever you think is best for me. Right? So he realizes he's not even prepared to ask what it is. Because sometimes you think, oh, the famous, oh, if I won the lottery, then I'll help a lot of people. If you don't know how to help with a little, you do not know how to help when you have a lot, right? But basically, as to the point where he says, yes, Jesus, now I got it. Now I want to, whatever is the plan that you have for me, because you know what's best, or what I'm prepared to handle, what do I have enough knowledge to handle, right? And then Jesus answers him in a voice inside and say, okay, now I'm within you and you're within me, right? So in the end, nobody's in a situation, and I mean, Ganesh, like you saying how we change, right? Nobody's in a situation where we cannot handle. Can be difficult, but it's like where it should be. And it reminds me in English when you say, be careful what you wish, right? And sometimes we wish stuff that we are not prepared.
Yeah, that's true. I think there's a lot of cases I understand that before reincarnating, people say, oh, give me all this money, I know to help people, give me the fame, give me everything. And then when the reality comes, they're not able to handle some of
Yeah, exactly. There are two words that I like to relate to this. The first one is pride. The second one is pride and selfishness.
Greed.
Greed. So sometimes you have poor, poor people, and they have so much pride, so much pride. And sometimes you have millionaires, billionaires, and they are humble. They are very, very humble. So sometimes people, they have this thing of, a rich person, she is full of pride. And sometimes she's not. Maybe she's just shy. But we have to be very careful of not judging people because of their richness or because of their lack of it or because they are poor. Some people, they are poor, they have so much knowledge, and it's not the knowledge of being intelligent, of have gone to universities, of a master or PhD. They have the knowledge of being a real person in a state of Jesus came and taught us. So it's something that I see a lot of people being, like people, they are so proud the way they talk to somebody else, and they're not rich. They're just medium class, but they have that pride that they talk down to first. So they talk with authority that they don't have it. So that is something too that I see, that it doesn't matter if you are rich or if you're poor. You carry this into this lifetime, and you have to really open your eyes and your ears to listen what people are sending it back to you. Because this is when you know, or why people are mistreating me, or why am I always alone, or why, and sometimes it's just, not a lack of yourself. So I think it's a great thing that people don't realize.
True.
On this lecture, I always think about Buddha, actually, because Buddha, probably you know, Siddhartha Gautama, was a prince, and he grew up in a castle or palace, surrounded by a wall, and he could never see anything bad that was outside the wall. And he grew up that way. And one day he escaped the castle, and he saw everything, all the horrors, all the poverty, all the pain. He never suffered pain before. And then he decided to live his life outside the castle. And so he went all the way. So he became homeless, or he was just into meditation, 100%, hunger, and all the way. And then after some time, he figured out the middle way, that it's not to be super rich or super materialist, or not even 100% on the other side. But the right side is the right way, is the middle way. So that's the first point. And the second point, every time that I talk about that or I read this passage, I'm trying to find the middle way. But what is the middle way? It's like the middle way for Bill Gates probably is so completely different than my middle way, right? Or my mate middle way, right? So it's like I try to find a common denominator or a common rule that could be applied, because our lives change, right? You could be super rich today or super poor tomorrow, or vice versa. But you should have at least some guidance that help me or help the people around me to pursue the right way. And the way that I'm understanding this today is that am I doing everything that I can to help and support the others around me? And around me, it starts to be my family, my friends, my neighbors. It's very easy for you to just give money and donate, because you're always gonna find people to receive money or donations. but are you doing everything you can to support financially or time or love or patience, right? Or your intelligence, people around me. And that's the way I try to find the middle way. It's not perfect. But that's so difficult, right? It's like how much money? You mentioned $75,000. That's actually the Marvel pyramid, right? Concept. Your base salary and then everything else, all the benefits are just less relevant, right? What is the middle way?
Yeah, I wish there was a clear guideline on that.
A number,
I
right?
think the middle way is your middle way
Yeah.
today, because this is your life today. This is your experiencing that you have today. So this is your middle way. Because if we think about other people, they have their own way. So we don't know. you
Yeah,
know?
but my point in middle way is, let's say that you do have $1 million. How much should you donate? It's $500,000. It's $200,000.
Whatever it is for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever it is
But it's
for
like it's how can I impact positively the people around me,
you. Mhm.
right?
And sometimes has nothing to do with money.
Correct. Yes. Could it be time,
Yeah.
patient,
Exactly.
right?
And in the sense of
Listening.
Understanding.
self-improvement, it's like if you're helping today, this is amazing. How can you improve a little bit next time? So you're always like trying to push yourself to help more
And that's how we understand reincarnation. You know, like if you're a little bit better in this incarnation than you were in your last, today you're even thinking about it. Maybe a few incarnations back, this wasn't even in your mind.
Yeah.
So for us to be here together, we have some awareness that this is important for us to become better just by understanding this, you know, and it's hard because as you said, Bill Gates has a different scale than you know.
Yeah.
Maybe his is more. Who
And
knows?
this question, this bucket of questions in the spiritual is together with the property. You mentioned a little bit, right? The property challenge. But it's interesting, right? It's like what exactly is the poverty challenge, right? That is the rich challenge or richness. But you mentioned about resignation. You mentioned about you put on a second word over there, I forgot. But resignation is one of them.
patient.
But in the spiritual book, it's saying, can you suffer without complaining?
Mhm.
That's another one that is, we should mention this together as well, because sometimes the poverty that or the hunger, we are always complaining.
Yeah.
Right? We are always complaining because we don't have a job, we don't have money, we don't have food, we don't have shelter.
So this lifetime is gone. We're complaining, this lifetime is
Yeah.
gone. You have to do it.
I think that's exactly about the midway. I
Yeah.
think the midway is not about, I think bringing to what you brought to us, Isabella, it's how you donate. So it's not about how much I have, so how much should I, because I have a 1 million, how should I donate? It's not about, it's about the midway between valuing the material things that I need to be here to survive and have a life of dignity, and how much I'm valuing the spiritual. So that's where we need to have the balance. That to me, that's a midway. Because I may be a millionaire and not donate much in terms of making donations, even if I get my tax return, like you said, my tax receipt. But I may own industries, I may own factories and companies where I treat really well my employees. Where I don't have much left to get to make big $1 million donations, but I treat way better my because then how many families I'm not helping because I'm being better, I'm giving decent salaries and everything. Unfortunately, usually that's not what we do. To your point, Isabel, how do we do those charity? Because I may treat my patients with a really bad way, have millions of dollars, and then I make this big $1 million donation under my name. My name is the name of the building now. It's completely different. So maybe it's not about just like, oh, here I'm donating. Yeah, great. Then on top of treating well all my employees, everybody who's under me, and I go ahead on top of that I do donation. Fantastic.
but it doesn't need necessarily to be a donation. It can be, how do I treat people? Because if I'm a millionaire, I do have people working under me. How do I treat all of them? From the big guy to the small guy, they're on the line of factory. Do I treat them well? Do they have enough money to give a life of dignity to their employees? That's a good use of my wealth, because that is just not for me. I care for everybody who's under me, right? That's the middle way to me. So it's really how much I worry about me and how much I worry about the others. How much the material, the spiritual, to the point that you cannot serve Mammon and God at the same time. Which one I'm serving more? That's the middle way that Liberty is talking about.
One thing that we didn't talk about is time. How do I donate my time? You know, how do I, sometimes people call you and you're, that person, I don't feel like talking to her, but maybe that is the biggest challenge that you have, you know? Because maybe that person really needs to hear from you, but you don't want to answer. So giving your time, giving your patience, giving your goodness that you have in you, you know, and what we get here, and we leave every Sunday from TSS feeling so much better about ourselves. So let's spread this temptation through somebody that passes your way, you know, and being more kind for everybody around you, you know, and try and do your trials, because we all have trials. It doesn't matter. We all have.
And the spirituality finds a way to gives us opportunities to help people. And it could be strangers, it could be friends. So like sometimes like you get a message from friends you haven't heard from in a long time, and they're asking for advice, they're asking for help. And these are very unique opportunities for us to help. We're being called to. So it's not something that was always there. We're being called to do something, and that's the way I see, like, we have to do it. We have to put our best effort in helping them, because it was almost something orchestrated by the spirituality.
I think charity is the easiest one.
Yeah.
Charity of money, you know,
Yeah.
giving money away or helping somebody in a way, a material way. That's the easiest one.
I think what we're all saying here is that this is not a one-time decision. This is something that we have to face every day or constantly throughout our lives. Look at this room. We're all rich compared to a great part of the world. But we all have our challenges. We all have our own issues that we have to address. So in this case, what we have to come back to is some core principles. What are the core principles that's going to help us not make as many mistakes in these decisions as we would otherwise? And to me, it's 3 principles. The first is humility, because as long as we're feeling superior to others, even if we do charity with them, we're doing it for the wrong reason. We're doing it because we feel better than we have to give to them. Second one is empathy, which you spoke about, right? We have to be able to put ourselves in somebody else's shoes, because otherwise we'll never understand their challenges and their pain. And this leads to the third one, which is compassion or charity, right? Because once we are humble, once we can understand what other people, we can also truly be compassionate and figure out how we can best help them.
Yeah, good point. Interesting. Any other comments?
All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone that was with us over the internet. Hoping to see you here next week.